Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Welcome to the Films and Stuff debate. The idea is super simple. Ethan and I pose a simple statement or topic about which we feel needs a short, semi-nuanced discussion.
Then Pete and I will randomly assign ourselves either the pro or anti side of the statement. We then each get up to 4 minutes of uninterrupted time to argue our points.
After their opening round, Ethan and I get a 3-minute rebuttal each, which is followed by a 1-minute closing statement.
And then it's up to you, the listener, to decide who is the rightful winner. Vote for us on Twitter, leave a comment on our YouTube channel, and let us know who you think won.
And now, on to our debate.
Bring it on. Pete, how are you today?
I'm well, how are you?
I'm great. You know, we've got something very special to talk about today because it's our first debate club.
That's right. This is our very, very first ever debate between you and me.
Mano y mano, gloves off, last man standing in the cage.
That's right.
Let's
winner
without
takes all.
further ado, winner takes all as voted by the listeners. So without further ado, what's our topic today?
Today, the statement of debate is justice for Jerry. Jerry West is the victim in Winning Time.
So let me take 30 seconds and put the background to this. You and I have been avidly watching Winning Time, the show about the Los Angeles Lakers in the early 1980s that's on HBO Max. And some of our episodes even discussed whether or not, these folks were portrayed in a good way. And we were ahead of our time because then suddenly it seemed like there was just a barrage of bad publicity coming out where Jerry West, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Michael Cooper, and even Magic Johnson started to say they were not happy with how they were portrayed or other people in the show were portrayed. And now it's turned into, can we say a brouhaha?
I think that's the legal term.
It's a brouhaha. And now here we are where there's potentially some defamation lawsuits. Jerry West has said he'll take this to the Supreme Court, to which I think the Supreme Court just yawned and said, what's HBO Max?
To which the Supreme Court said, Jerry who?
Jerry who? So let's assign sides. Which side are you taking today?
I am for the statement. Jerry West is a victim.
So you're pro Jerry West. I am anti Jerry West, only for the purposes of this debate.
And for the purposes of the topic.
And for purposes of the topic.
Not that we hate Jerry West. We love the guy.
We do not. We love him. I'm going to be defending the show, the showrunners, and the depiction.
Good luck.
Would you like to make your opening statement? You're the prosecutor. I'm the defense. So would you like to make your opening statement, Mr. Prosecutor? Prosecutor Pete.
Prosecutor Pete. All right. Let me get the clock started. So we've got 4 minutes each.
Ding, ding.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, let me just say that Jerry West hasn't played basketball or hasn't been closely associated with the Lakers as a coach since 1979 and as an executive since 2000. He's been with the organization as a player / coach / executive since 1960, which would mean, 50, 60 years that he has given his life and his blood and his sweat to the team through and through as the bedrock, actually, of the team. The second statement I have to make is that people have short memories. Everyone forgets the bad times, especially when you have the good times. And let's not kid ourselves, the Kobe / Shaq era of the early 2000s, and to a lesser extent, the Anthony Davis / LeBron James era of the last 2 years has more or less wiped out all of the bad memories for the Lakers fan base, especially that of 50 years ago. So the first 2 points I've made sets up the perfect environment for HBO, an entertainment behemoth, lest you forget, to cast anyone as a villain and get away with it. And what single person, mind you, has the capacity to go after HBO, with the exception of maybe Elon Musk and any other billionaire? The way Jerry West has been depicted has been so mean-spirited and uncalled for. Even members of the Showtime Lakers have called out HBO on this. And these are guys who owe the Lakers and West nothing. Certainly not now, and certainly not even back then. The man won a ring as a player for the Lakers. He won 5 more as an executive. And maybe most importantly, he set up the Kobe and Shaq era of the early 2000s before departing the organization. What more can you expect this man to do? I think HBO has purposefully vilified Jerry West because out of everyone on that Showtime's era team, there was no one that could really fit the role of an antagonist. And that's why I think they picked who they perceived to be the weakest link in the chain, Jerry West. The man who wasn't able to get through the 5 championships that he could have pulled through as a player. The man who wasn't able to pull through a couple of championships as a coach. What better person to vilify and to make the bad guy inside the organization than my man, Jerry West? I thank you for your time, and I rest my case.
Well, thank you, Pete. I'm happy that you rested your case. And I have to say, that was a very eloquent opening statement. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I represent the defendant in this case, HBO Max, and their showrunner and writers and producers. And I submit to you that the defendant is not guilty on all charges on the basis of 3 factors. First, Jerry West is not portrayed incorrectly or inaccurately. Second, this is by all accounts a dramatic series on HBO Max, and no one can sincerely believe that every single word or action precisely matches history. And third, the depiction of Jerry West is not, on balance, entirely negative. Let me break these 3 statements down. First, Jerry West, as an extremely successful professional basketball player, turned coach, turned executive, as Prosecutor Pete has mentioned, was depicted as all human beings are. He is ambitious, he is driven, he is a professional who is committed to the Los Angeles Lakers franchise. He, of course, has, like we all do in life, some qualities that are not ideal. And just to identify that, like all of us, he has some positive traits and negative traits doesn't necessarily defame the man. In fact, I think it portrays him in a more complex way so that we can understand some of the internal struggles that he had, and we can admire him for overcoming these things. Second, this is a show on HBO Max about the Los Angeles Lakers. This is not a documentary. This is not a serious film. This is not anything where someone can sincerely believe that every single thing that Jerry West has said or done in this series is absolutely, certifiably true and accurate. There is, of course, when you have any dramatic series, liberties taken with a character. And I think anybody who watches this cannot sincerely believe that Jerry West is exactly like his persona. Things are necessarily exaggerated for dramatic effect, and I think everybody who watches this show would recognize that. Thirdly, on balance, I don't think that Jerry West is portrayed particularly negatively. He has not committed any violence, any crimes. He's not done any drugs. He hasn't drank excessively. He has not womanized, nor has he actually done anything to damage anyone. He's very emotional. He is driven. He is committed. And at times he's frustrated by his own inability, to win or to overcome things. But that shouldn't overshadow that on balance, he's depicted as a very driven, committed person. And at one point he even mentioned he could have retired and be sitting on a beach and be having babies with his young wife. Instead, he's committed to the Lakers winning championships. And I think that demonstrates that HBO does have his best interest in mind. Thank you. Okay, Pete, I think I went over my 4 minutes.
No, you just snuck in right under.
All right.
15 seconds to spare, actually.
Whoa, thank you. All right. Would you like to make a counterpoint to my opening?
Yes, let me make my rebuttal. So my esteemed colleague Ethan has made some interesting, maybe even bewildering points. Let's break down what he's got to say. And I think you'll agree that maybe the first and the third points are the most connected of the two. Ethan claimed that the depiction of Jerry West wasn't inaccurate. And he said that depiction was not negative. I put it to you, jury, and fellow deliberators and listeners of our podcast, that any man who's depicted as being drunk, as being manic depressive, as being belligerent, as being being someone who throws temper tantrums and is prone to fits of rage, that is not a positive depiction. His basketball prowess may have been positive, but his personal life certainly had very little to do with the Lakers, had nothing to do with it, and most importantly, we don't know if that's accurate. We don't know if he actually was any of those things that the Lakers have, that the HBO producers have claimed it to be. Secondly, I would say that, of course, HBO Max would say that this is a dramatization. But let me remind you that you can't hide behind the label of dramatization when you claim to be a dramatization of real-life events, first. Second, when you claim that you're, relatively accurate in your depiction of the Lakers era. Let me just remind you, they have changed so many things for so many different people to fit their narrative. Rather than keeping history and portraying history as it was, HBO has gone out of its way to say, hey, Jack Kent Cooke was a jerk when he wasn't. They've gone to say that Paul Westhead was trying his best to, take away the team from McKinney when he wasn't, when he was quite deferential. And they've gone on to say that, they won games and they lost games that they actually didn't win or lose. They've gone so far as to say, hey, this is a sports biopic, but we're going to fudge the numbers on the actual games. Can anyone trust HBO to do the right thing if this is how they're presenting the story? I don't think so.
Thank you, Pete. I appreciate your rebuttal and your counter-argument, but I think you are confused because your argument that this show has so many significant discrepancies and inaccuracies, I believe, is supporting my argument that no one can justifiably take what is on this television show seriously. And I'd also like to point out that Jerry West has in effect harmed himself through what is known as the Streisand effect, which you may know from Barbra Streisand a long time ago. I dare not guess what year. Apparently, there was some type of ecological department in California that took a photo of her oceanside residence to show the impact of soil erosion. Unbeknownst to them, it included a photo of her mansion. Therefore, everyone was able to see her mansion. This was before the internet. And had she not written cease and desist letters and sued this department for showing her the unauthorized use of her mansion, no one actually would have gone and had the curiosity to go see her mansion. And Jerry West is doing something very similar here. No one actually believes that he was really depicted in such a negative way. Yes, he was temperamental. Yes, he had a tantrum. Yes, he had some profane language. On balance, it didn't take away from the fact that he was, by all accounts, credited with single-handedly winning a championship for the Lakers, being an extraordinarily driven person, a successful head coach, someone who was resoundingly committed to the Los Angeles Lakers franchise. Had he not become a little bit sensitive about how he was depicted, which kind of supports the tantrums that he's had in the show, no one would be giving a second thought to a coach who was aggressive or who had a temper. Successful coaches have tempers. But the fact that he had a temper tantrum over being depicted as having a temper tantrum essentially supports the fact that it may not be untrue how he's shown in the show. In any case, I would just like to leave you with this. On balance, he is not shown as a bad person or who's done anything illegal or immoral. He has personal foibles just like all of us, whether it's a temper, whether it's an emotional outburst, or whether it's periods of self-doubt. But all of those are overcome by his commitment to the Lakers, his championship, and a Hall of Fame worthy career. Please find my defendant, HBO Max, not guilty of all charges brought by Prosecutor Pete. Malicious Prosecutor Pete. I rest my case.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, for my closing argument, I'd just like to say how typical it would be. How typical is this that the defendant, Ethan, of HBO Max, is of course resorting to victim blaming and victim shaming. Jerry West is a lone, singular man who has committed no crime yet and is not a bad guy, but has been proven time and again to show, has been shown time and time again that he is in fact the bad guy. Not one that the Lakers deserve, but maybe the one that the Lakers needed. And let me be clear, when I say the Lakers, I don't mean the Lakers of real life. I mean the Lakers of HBO Max's winning time. This man has been unfairly dragged through the mud and shown and portrayed as being the bad guy, when in fact all he's done, as Ethan here has pointed out, has been nothing but serve the team to the best of his capacity. I trust you'll find in my favor.
Well, I would just like to simply say that I don't think that Jerry West has been portrayed so badly. I agree that there have been scenes that have not been ideal, and I'm sure that he hasn't enjoyed watching them. But again, on balance, I find those to be a very small part of his overall depiction. And I think that the producers and the showrunners went out of their way to emphasize the good and to not dwell on some negative characteristics. And I think that to the extent that those negative characteristics were shown, it was only intended to explain how he reached this level, what his motivations were, and what drove him and gave him the passion to win. So again, I do not think that the depiction was egregious, and I think that Jerry West should hold his head high about his career and about how people are still going to continue to perceive him even after the show.
And there you have it, our very first debate.
Very first debate club. Please vote for Pete, the prosecutor, or Ethan, the ethical defender of justice.
Oh, I see how this goes. All right.
Malpractice Pete. It's either malpractice ethical Ethan and malpractice Pete.
Oh yeah, you just wait for it, buddy. I'm going to be the one who's putting up the poll on Twitter, and we'll see how things go there.
When we do that poll, let's also put a few ideas for listeners to vote on what will be our next debate topic, right?
That's a good idea. That's actually a great idea. So what we can do is we'll put up one poll for this debate topic, and then maybe we'll put up either a second poll, or if you guys don't see anything on that poll that you like, feel free to tweet at us and let us know what else you want to hear about.
D, none of the above. Yes.
Okay. Or E, all of the above.
All the above. Some of the above. All right, Pete, that's it for today. We'll see you guys on the next episode of Debate Club.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.